Schneidman. Sound off now on the NicoleLaw.com talk and text line at 1-877-794-1973. That's 1-877-794-1973.
If I'm in this crummy situation, let's make content out of it.
The Matt Schneidman Show is brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Bet above the rest.
Never go corporate. Always go local.
With Hunter Baumgart, here's Matt Schneidman on the game.
Matt Schneidman Show, Wednesday, January 15th. Matt LaFleur Podcast Day, the last one, brings a tear to my eye. Hunter Baumgart, doesn't it do the same to you?
It is. It's the fifth and final episode of the season, and these have been really entertaining, these interviews. So I'm excited for the last one, but also sad that it is the last one of the season.
Yeah, I was interested to see how Matt LaFleur would be, and he's always kind of similar at these season-ending press conferences and season wrap-up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little lighter mood than, say, his final press conference after they lose to the 49ers or the Buccaneers or whoever it may be, the Lions in the regular season at one time. And it was more of the same this season. But we touch on a bunch of stuff from what he told Keyshawn Nixon, because he says he saw Keyshawn Nixon right after his press conference and in between when Doug and I taped with him yesterday. All these days blend together. Saw Keyshawn Nixon. He tells us what he told him about Nixon's comments about not wanting to return kickoffs anymore. I asked him about Richard Sherman's comments, what he needs to do to be better for Jordan Love. The one thing that is outdated is he says in there, spoiler, he says in there that he's surprised Jeff Hafley has not gotten head coaching interviews yet. And as Albert Rear reported, within the last hour, the Jets have requested to interview Jeff Hafley for their head coaching job, which is not a surprise. The Jets are probably going to interview Hunter Baumgart and Matt Schneidman next. They're interviewing everybody. Good for Jeff Hafley. He deserves it. Transformed this defense this season. They were one of the best defenses in the league with a really young unit. And Jeff Hafley did a great job. And I don't think he's going to get the Jets job, but you never know with them. And if anything, it puts his name in consideration in those circles for future years. So that is the one outdated part of this podcast, but we touch on a bunch. Not all bad, not all good. It's a mixed bag, kind of like the Packers season. So without further ado, please enjoy the final Matt LaFleur podcast of the season. Last edition of the Matt LaFleur podcast, and we're going to start with some glass half full. So the last time...
Finally in my life, glass half full.
How full is that cup of coffee or whatever?
It's pretty full right now.
Okay, excellent. So the last time you guys had the 23rd pick in the draft was the 2010 season. You won the Super Bowl that year going into a quarterback's third year starting, and the season prior you had 11 wins. So I think that just means you're winning the Super Bowl next year. Since you have the 23rd pick in the draft again.
Thanks for that optimism there, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I assume it never gets any easier when a season ends, or does the disappointment just compound when the years go by? You know, you're going to be going into year 7 without a Super Bowl appearance. Does it eat at you as the years go by?
Eats at my core. Yeah. I mean, this is what you live for. This is what you work for. And so naturally, when you invest a lot in something and it doesn't end the way you'd like it to, there's going to be a ton of disappointment. But that's the nature of our beast. That's the nature of sports, right? Only one team's going to be happy at the end of this thing. And the thing for me is just disappointing. I feel like we wasted a really good defensive performance and did a poor job offensively and did a poor job on special teams for it to end like that. And, you know, like I mentioned, you're not going to win many games when you're -4 in the turnover battle.
When you say you need to be better for Jordan as a head coach, what exactly do you mean by that? What do you think? And I know you'll have much more time to reflect and take the deep dives in the offseason, but what do you need to do more for him as a coach to make sure, you know, we see a $220 million quarterback over more consistent stretches?
Yeah, I think for me, I think everybody has to be better, first of all, but I think you have to look inward before you can look anywhere else. And so just making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. And especially in these critical games and these critical moments, like everybody's got to be at their best. And when you're not, you're not going to perform the way you want to perform. A lot gets put on the quarterback, rightfully so. That just comes with the nature of the beast. But I think collectively everybody has to be a lot better around him. And that's why I always say I got to be better for everybody in order for that, expect them to be better.
Like when you reflect this offseason, how granular will you get with, looking at your play calls when things went right, when things went wrong? Like how deep into the weeds will you get from this season?
I think you go through everything and look at the moments of, does the play even have a chance is where I usually start with when I'm watching tape.
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, then why did we have that play in the game plan? Why didn't we have something else? And granted, you're not going to hit every call. I mean, these guys on the other side are pretty good as well, especially the likes of a Vic Fangio. And but I think you got to have answers for your players, that there's got to be something that can at least to keep you away from or avoiding those negative plays. And
another silver lining, you were not last in drops, as was said in the press conference. You were 27th.
Okay, but it just depends who's marking them, because everybody's got a different standard for how they mark drops. I think we're pretty tough on our guys. If they're able to get their hands on it, we expect it to be caught. Mm-hmm. So, and I want to have those high standards around here. I think that's how you inevitably get people to be at their best.
I think this was the first end of season press conference in like 4 years where you weren't asked about giving up play calling, because every year you're asked about it. Then every year it's, we'll take a look at everything. And I'm not saying you should, but that isn't a consideration, correct? I just feel like that's the standard year-end question.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that want me to give up play calling.
I can confirm that. Yes.
That's yeah. I mean, that's all right. It just is what it is. That's why you just got to win, and you got to be at your best at the end of the season. And it's an emotional game, and people invest a lot into to their teams. But I thought we did offensively. We did a lot of great things this year in terms of our production.
So Adam Stenavich requested to interview with the Chicago Bears for their head coaching job. Have you had any other coaches be requested for jobs, whether it's OC jobs or
not at this
jobs?
Not at this point. And I'll be ecstatic. Ultimately he's got his own aspirations and goals, and I think he's deserving of that. I'm a little surprised Hafley hasn't gotten more interest as of yet, because I think he's worthy of it as well.
I know you said you have some options, but I'm assuming the new quarterback coach will be from in-house. Or is it too soon to make a decision on that, or can I guess who it might be? And if I get it right, you'll tell me?
Well, no, I'm not going to tell you anything. But
okay.
I think, first of all, there's a process you have to go through in regards to the league. And so we'll go through our process, and we'll get the best candidate that we can find. Now, luckily for us, I feel like there are some people in-house that could potentially, that I'm definitely going to interview, and may the best man win.
Is Luke Getsy in consideration, since he's been around the building?
That's another guy that potentially.
Okay. You were asked about Keyshawn out there, and I was look, we talk to these guys a lot, and nobody speaks their mind more than Keyshawn Nixon. So I was a little surprised when I heard that he said he's done with kickoffs. And the two reasons he gave us were because the new rule has frustrated him. He had 18 returns this year compared to, I think 65 combined the last 2 years. And then he wants to focus on being an outside cornerback. When you hear that, is the conversation you're going to have to him with him today be, you need to be more of a team player, or hear him out? Or what is that going to be like?
Yeah, I think,
because I know you were smiling a lot when you were answering.
Yeah,
that.
And I ran into Keyshawn right after the press conference, and I just tried to get him to understand how that comes off, because I think he is a team player,
mm-hmm.
and he's going to do whatever you ask him to do. But he was a a little too honest, I think, in that moment in terms of
Which
how
we
he really
appreciate.
I know you do, because it's a good click. He's like, oh, I didn't think it was going to go off like that. I was like, but you got to understand how everything you say is so important, and how people are going to interpret. I know the guy, and I totally trust the guy, and I love Keyshawn Nixon. He does a great job, and he is a true competitor. And I promise you, if we want him to be the returner, he's going to go back there and do it, because he is a team player.
Right.
But I told him, like, you got to just make sure we have those conversations before you pop off and say something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. He mentioned something yesterday, and I'm not sure he was taking a shot at anybody in the locker room or making a direct commentary, but he seemed to believe that there might be some guys in the locker room that aren't willing to be brought along by leaders. He was talking about how in the new age of, NIL in college, guys come into the league and aren't going to work as hard for stuff. Do you feel that the youth of your team is willing to, be open to learning, and that it has developed a good culture in there in that regard?
Yeah, I believe so. But, I'm not in the locker room every day either.
Okay.
So I think it's amazing how unopinionated people can be when I start to talk to them. And so you get a better sense, I think, from the guys themselves. And there's a couple guys I definitely lean on in there and try to get the pulse of what's really going on and what the mindset is. But I love our locker room. I think we got a bunch of good dudes that love to compete and love the game of football. And that's really it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want guys that just love the grind, love the challenge, because that's how you're going to get the most out of them.
Who are those guys that you lean on?
There's a lot of guys. I mean, our quarterback's one of them. I'll go through Josh Jacobs. Definitely. He's been a huge addition. Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. I mean, Quay Walker. There's a lot of guys that Keyshawn, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson. I think there's a ton of guys in that locker room that I can lean on and kind of get a vibe of what's going on.
It has come out that Josh avoided anything serious, which is insane considering what it looked like on the field. He's obviously going into free agency, so that's good news for him. But I'm assuming, considering everything you've said about him, you would like him back. I know you've said before you'd like everybody back, but it seems like he means a little bit more to this group than just be on the field.
Yeah, I think so. He's the guy making all the IDs for our offense, and I just think that component between him and the quarterback is so important. It's hard enough in this league in terms of all the different fronts and coverages and structures that you get. So it's nice to have somebody that's been through it and has that experience. But, ultimately there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made each and every year. And that'll be another one.
Coming up next on the Matt LaFleur Podcast.
That's an interesting take. I try not, I was unaware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody's going to have an opinion, and you just got to ignore the noise.
That's next as the Matt LaFleur Podcast continues.
Always still look at myself as a high-performing athlete, even at 40 years old. And so I want to go able to run fast and do things that I could 15 and 20 years ago. And it was getting to the point where the pain was starting to limit that.
Pain attacks people from all walks of life, not just former professional athletes like Bobby Carpenter. That's where QC Kinetics non-surgical treatment steps in.
And now that the pain is gone, I've been able to go and do the stuff that I love and run fast and run sprints and try to get back to where I was.
QC Kinetics regenerative treatments use your body's own healing properties to deliver long-term relief without surgery.
Now, being able to go and work out and do the stuff that I want to do and challenge my body, it's made me a better person, a more pleasant person to be around.
Don't wait. Call QC Kinetics for your free consultation today. QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. 414-285-3474.
88 unread emails? Okay. New credit card? Delete. Congratulations, you've just won. Goodbye. COVID-19 news and delete. Wait, learn about treatment options for COVID-19. No and go. Okay, kind of catchy. Know that oral prescription treatment options are available for COVID-19 if you're at high risk. And go see your doctor if you experience symptoms or test positive. And forwarding that to mom.
Talk to your pharmacist or doctor if you or a loved one gets COVID-19. Know and Go. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Ready for a win? Well, it's your year. At Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, you can win over $2,000 in free play every month, all year long. Just play your favorite games and you might take the stage in the It's Your Year game show. 25 winners each Thursday. There's $300,000 in cash and prizes up for grabs this January. Yeah, we think it's your year. More info at paysbig.com. Must be 21 years old to play.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? So you've got an oil change coming up. We can help you save on the right oil for your vehicle. Right now, get 5 quarts of Castrol Edge Full Synthetic or Castrol Edge Full Synthetic High Mileage Motor Oil with an STP Extended Life Oil Filter for just $35.99. Visit one of our 6,000 stores or order from AutoZone.com for same-day store pickup or next-day delivery.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. Just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Our new and improved iHeartRadio app has made it even easier to enjoy the radio stations, podcasts, and playlists you love. How? Well, we've added everything you love about your car radio into the free iHeartRadio app. With easy-to-use presets, you can now save your favorite stations on the app, just like in your car. And with the all-new live radio dial, it's easier than ever to discover new stations you'll love based on your location or favorite genre. Find out what everyone's talking about and get the new and improved free iHeartRadio app today.
iHeartRadio!
97.3 The Game.
Welcome back to the Matt LaFleur Podcast. Once again, here's your host, Matt Schneidman.
I need to do a better job of not letting narratives of former players and people online about this team seep into my brain, but I'm going to say one just because of who said it. I don't know if Jason Waller's let you know that this was out there. I'm assuming not because you have a lot of things to do, but Richard Sherman was very vocal yesterday that the only reason he's throwing his hand up, the only reason you guys signed Josh Jacobs was because you didn't trust Jordan Love to win you guys a game with Richard Sherman yesterday. The exact wording was that you wanted to treat him like a rookie. The Packers don't want him to throw the game away, and that's why you signed Josh Jacobs, because essentially you knew Jordan Love couldn't carry you with his arm.
That's an interesting take. You know, I try not. I was unaware of that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, everybody's going to have an opinion, and you just got to ignore the noise. And that's what I've done. I do not. I can't imagine what they're saying about me right now. So it just is what it is, man. People want to win and they're passionate, but I know how I feel about Jordan Love, and I feel like we can absolutely let him rip it 50 times if need be to go win us a playoff game, and you can win a Super Bowl with him.
I know you never want to make excuses, and I'm not saying this is one, but you know, he said after the game or implied basically that his knee never fully healed, but it got to a point where he could play through it. He doesn't think he's going to need to have any surgery. Were the injuries more than, you know, he and you guys were letting on during the season in terms of affecting how he played?
That's a question for him.
Okay.
You know, he battled through and practiced, and I think that his game got impacted when he couldn't practice, quite frankly. But I think whether you're whoever you are, you got, especially football. It's not like basketball where I can go work on my jumper by myself. Mm-hmm. It's not like or ball handling, or I can a baseball player and go hit in the batting cages or whatever. I mean, it's a choreographed sport where 11 guys got to be on the same page. And I think the only way you get better at football is you got to go practice.
Now, I know you've talked about it a little, but just the likelihood is Christian Watson's probably going to miss a chunk of next season because of that torn ACL. And it's interesting, you did say it doesn't matter if you're 22 or 32, because there's a receiver out there who is 32 who said he would be open to coming back to the Packers. And I think you've coached him before, not trying to get you in trouble for tampering, But
well, then I can't answer the question.
okay, there you go. It's Devontae Adams for anyone wondering out there. I know you probably don't subscribe to this theory, but look, if you told a Packer fan before the 23 season that you're going to make the playoffs the next 2 years with the youngest team ever to do it, those 2 years, they'd be like totally fine. But last season changed expectations for this one, which is why this one, it feels from an outsider's perspective like a disappointment. Do you think the franchise is still on this trajectory you would like it to be with your new franchise quarterback in place?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of growth this year. Obviously wasn't good enough though. And like what's so important about this game is you got to be peaking at the right time. And I thought there was areas where we were peaking. I thought defensively we got better as the season progressed. And it's just disappointing the last couple of weeks offensively where we finished up. But that doesn't, this is the NFL is a crazy journey, and it's hard to recapture and recreate whatever the feeling from years past. Every year is a new season. I think there's lessons along the way. I think one thing that was interesting, just if you're comparing the two seasons, is just the amount of adversity we went through the previous year in 2023 in terms of being, 3-6 and rallying and still having some disappointing times in there, the Tampa game, but going on the road and beating Dallas, and then, going toe to toe with San Francisco, who ultimately goes to the Super Bowl. And then this year we didn't have as much adversity, I would say, from a wins and loss standpoint. And then you have a couple. I'm not saying that we won or lost the game because of injuries. That's a part of the ball, but then you have some injuries at inopportune times, and it can kind of change your trajectory a little bit.
I just want to ask one thing from the game. This is not crapping on the guy since he had played 13 snaps, but what was the decision to put Glover in instead of Telford? Obviously, it's not an ideal situation to have a one of the best guards in the league go down with Elton, but what was that decision there? And then obviously you guys made a change again shortly after that.
Yeah, well, you're always going to go with the guys that you feel like are going to give you the best chance to win. And unfortunately, we had a couple penalties, and that's why we went the other way. It's not all doom and gloom. I think people obviously think that because the season ended, but I wanted to ask you about Edgerrin Cooper and what you think he can be for this defense going forward. I think he's got superstar potential. I really do. As long as he continues to work, which I know he will. I think Campanelli does a great job of kind of grinding those guys. I think it was a huge learning curve coming from Texas A&M to here. And you saw the more he played, the better he got and the more consistent he got. And I think it's going to be a great off season for him. I think he's planning on staying in town, and hopefully we can get him bigger, stronger, faster, and
riding his horses.
Yeah. And riding his horses.
I understand they're going to have to compete in camp, but do you envision Marshawn Lloyd and Jordan Morgan having integral, really important roles in this offense next year?
Yeah, that was the plan this year.
Right.
Unfortunately, we could never get Marshawn going. I think he played in the Indy game, and he just was, and you can see his explosiveness on tape. So he would definitely add a dynamic to that room and to that position. I think anytime you can have, whether it's a tight end or a runner that can create matchup issues in the passing game, that's huge for you. And he's got a lot of explosive ability. I thought Jordan was making some good progress. Jordan Morgan making some good progress, and just unfortunately, his shoulder kept giving him issues.
I'm going to try and phrase this question differently than the way you've got it all year, but how do you think your wide receiver room handled the way they were used this year in terms of a guy might get 6 targets this game, then he might go a couple weeks, Christian went a couple weeks without seeing much. Jaden Reed went a couple weeks without seeing much. Do you think they handled that well? And do you think that's a viable way for this offense to succeed going forward?
Yeah, the interesting thing, we didn't throw the ball as much this year.
Right.
We percentagely, I think we're number 2 in the league in terms of percentage at least on first and second down in terms of the number of runs. So we ran it a lot more, and those guys they all want the ball. I've never met a receiver that doesn't want the ball, which I wouldn't want a receiver that doesn't want the ball. So, I always go and judge by how they compete. And I thought our guys competed with or without the ball in their hands. I mean, I think our receiving core blocks as well as any receiving core in the National Football League. And I think that says a lot about the guys.
Do you think Rasheed Walker is a viable replacement to be your franchise left tackle? Because I know after all the Bakhtiari stuff, it was, okay, he's kind of just forced in there. But this was really his, I guess, first full season starting. I know Dave played the first game last season, I think. But do you think Rasheed has that franchise left tackle potential?
Yeah, I think she's got a lot of talent. And we got to continue to get him just locked in on the details all the time, because every play is so critical, especially when you're protecting the quarterback's blind side, but not only in the run game, but not only in the passing game, but in the run game as well. So I think consistency is a huge term that we always talk about. And I think he can, in order for him to take his game to another level, that's what we got to see, just a little bit more consistency. But as far as the tools that you look for, he 100% has all that.
I'm glad we talked about the play action in there, because that's been the only thing I've heard the last couple of days is why didn't they run play action? But I think, as is the case with anything, there's more nuance to some of these talking points. And it really is just because that you guys, ran the ball better out of shotgun. So it's easier to sell the run out of that, essentially, to put it in layman's terms.
Yeah. And, again, every game is a little bit different.
Right.
Like sometimes, depending upon what type of action you want to do, some teams you can do it on, some teams you can't. Like it would be hard to pull a lot of guards versus Jalen Carter, for example, when you're blocking back on that guy, because he's probably going to wreck the play. So I think you got to be selective in what you're doing, when you're doing it, with who you're doing it with, and conversely, who you're going against. Going against, like, for example, an Aaron Donald for all those years, like you couldn't have certain actions in a game plan because he was going to blow up the play. So our whole goal, anytime we did an action pass is where is Aaron Donald at, and how do we get 4 hands on him? We need 2 bodies on that guy. Otherwise he's going to destroy the play. And it really sometimes will limit you what you have on your call sheet when a guy of that caliber is in the game. And I think, I don't want to necessarily say Jalen Carter's Aaron Donald, but he's pretty damn good. He's on that path. And when a guy like that goes out of the game, now your whole call sheet opens up. So I think, situation, who you're going against, all that, the timing element of all that goes and factors into a lot of these play calls.
I just want to ask about a couple individuals before we get out of here. Rashawn Gary didn't break out right away when he got here because he was obviously drafted behind the Smiths, and Kyler Fackrell was coming back. Where do you think Van Ness is at right now going into year 3 and the year he just had?
Yeah, I think he's still a relatively young guy and young player that I think there's a lot of untapped potential there, and it's our job to get it out of him. And so it's going to be a critical offseason for him. And the guy, he's built like a Greek god now. So I know he'll put the work in, and then we got to try to just untap that potential, I think, this offseason and into next season.
When is the first time you allow yourself to detach from football this offseason and go to wherever you go?
It just depends. I got to check with my wife and see the kids' schedule. So I think right now is you just want to kind of decompress a little bit and evaluate every facet of your program. And there's a lot of talks that happen between now and then you got to start making decisions on certain, like with your staff. And if guys leave, obviously we got the quarterback job open. If Steno were to get a head job, like there's a lot of tough decisions that come along the way.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you.
We're back. I wrote down a couple things I thought were interesting from that, and just because it's what we heard most recently. Lucas Van Ness, there's a lot of untapped potential there. He's been in the system for, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, he's been in the building for 2 years. How long does it take to tap into that potential? Hunter, are you there?
Hello. Yeah, long time, I guess. It's a valid question. I'll give you that.
I guess I should have followed up with that, but they need him to start breaking out because Rashawn Gary probably didn't have the season that you'd want him to out of a $24 million a year pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas Van Ness, he had a couple game stretch in the middle of the season where he's wreaking havoc. Kingsley Enagbari's a number 3 edge rusher. He had some moments. Brenton Cox was probably the most consistent the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And he's realistically your number 4 guy. If the Packers want to make a big splash this offseason and really transform that defense, because if their cornerback room without Jair Alexander, and I fully expect them to cut or trade him if they can get anything back for him, I think other teams will probably realize that they're going to move on from him and maybe not even want to give anything up, maybe just a 7th round pick. If your cornerback room is going to be Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine and maybe a highly drafted rookie, you don't know if they can even come in and play right away. You need your pass rush to get home to make sure those guys don't have to cover for that long. So I say that to say, if they really want to make a splash to change their team, yes, a Devontae Adams or T. Higgins would be nice. Sure, drafting a corner in round 1 would be nice. The thing the Packers should really do to upgrade their team, if they want to make a big splash and feel the draft capital and money is available, which I believe it is trade for Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know how open the Raiders or Browns would be to trading them. But when Josh Jacobs said the other day, I'm going to make some calls, I'm going to try and get some guys in here, there's one guy who popped into my head above all else. That was Mr. Crosby over in Vegas.
And
the first one-on-one interview Max Crosby ever did once he got to the Raiders was with myself, actually, I believe.
Oh.
Got him off the podium as a 4th round pick out of Eastern Michigan in 2018. Yeah.
Oh, boy, he's come a long way since then, huh?
Long way.
Highly coveted player now in the NFL. But I think you're right. I think that's, you look at the flashy, what's going to be flashy when it comes to the offseason and the draft. Wide receiver, corner, but pass rush, how many times, throughout the season. And look, like you said, Jeff Hafley did wonders with this defense. He did great job, and that's why he's now got a request from the Jets to interview for their head coaching job. But there is that little next step that can bring, it feels like, this entire team to the next level. Do they need to be better on offense? Yes, but that pass rush seems like a big key on defense, especially, like you said, if you're going to lose Jair Alexander heading into next season.
Without a doubt. And you remember what we talked about yesterday when Matt LaFleur said, we didn't necessarily play our defense the way I thought we were going to at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing he mentioned, to reiterate what we said on yesterday's show, was he envisioned just rushing 4, playing 3 deep, 4 under. He talked about the Eagles being able to get home with 4. That's what Matt LaFleur envisioned with his team.
Yeah.
And then he was asked, well, what do you think you ended up doing? And the first thing he mentioned was how they utilized a lot of exotic rushes, simulated pressures, replacement fire zones to generate pressure. And for those who have listened to this show this season, you know what those are. But those are when you drop a defensive lineman into coverage and instead rush a linebacker or a DB. They did it with Edgerrin Cooper when Kingsley Enagbari dropped into coverage, where you mug 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, or 6, then you drop a couple into coverage, and one of them's a defensive lineman, and you rush Xavier McKinney off the edge. He had one against the Texans earlier this year that I remember. So the way you can take what Matt LaFleur said is, we are not good enough up front on the defensive line to win our one-on-ones, so we had to get crazy to generate pressure. They need a guy who can consistently win one-on-ones and defeat chips and maybe the occasional double team. Guys who can do that? Max Crosby and Myles Garrett. So maybe they go after one of those. We are conditioned around here to say, okay, the Packers aren't going to make big splashes. But when you really look at it, in the time I've been here, they did in 2019 with the Smiths. They did this past offseason with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. The other couple years, they didn't have the financial flexibility to.
Right.
Because of Aaron Rodgers' contract and a couple other things. Now they are out from under that. Currently 10th in available cap space for 2025 with over $50 million. And there's going to be more available after they do a couple things like, move on from Jair Alexander and any other restructures or whatever they need to do that they do every year, that Russ Ball does every year to free up some cap space. Do we have someone on the line, Hunter? I saw you go to the phone.
Yes. Our friend Bob in Long Island wants to
I'm going to miss Bob. I'm going to miss Bob.
Yeah, me too. Our nightly chats.
How you doing, gentlemen? I think what Love has to do next year is he's got to perfect as best as can be perfected the short to intermediate passing game. I think that's really what was missing. You just plod the ball down the field, safe passes, don't throw it into coverage. The deep passes just don't really work for us. I mean, Rodgers had trouble his last few years on the deep ball, and he's like one of the most accurate passers who ever lived. So I think we've got to get the short passing game 7-8 yards down the field and the high percentage passes.
That's a good point. I think at times this season we saw Jordan Love very willing to take that check down, and I think he has been all year. Part of the reason he maybe didn't take some of those shots, for example, in the Eagles game, was because they don't have guys outside Christian Watson who can create space downfield. On the Dontavian Wicks bomb early in that game, Dontavian Wicks isn't open. He's not open. No, so, yes, it requires Jordan Love to be better in those areas, but those are difficult throws anyway. But they also need guys who can get open. And, that is why they didn't beat the Eagles, because they weren't efficient enough in the intermediate game. And part of that was because of Jordan Love. There were a couple instances this year, and going back to last season against the Raiders, for example, when Robert Spillane picks him off, where he's just fooled by linebackers. It happened against the Vikings in week 4. It happened against the Eagles with Zach Bond a couple days ago. Like, some of these intermediate throws, linebackers are fooling him, and Jordan Love needs to know where these linebackers are, maybe look them off with his eyes. Maybe it's on Matt LaFleur to scheme something up where, I don't know, maybe a guy in the flat takes the linebacker's eyes toward him instead of over the middle where Jordan Love is going to throw it. As we've talked about, it's more than just the quarterback, but he does need to be better, and the Packers need to find a way to get him more efficient in the passing game. A couple other things I want to discuss from what we just heard from Matt LaFleur. The Keyshawn Nixon thing.
Yeah.
He said Keyshawn's a team player. If we want him to return kicks, he'll be back there. And I don't think that was Matt LaFleur saying we're going to force him to, even if he doesn't want to. That was Matt LaFleur saying, yes, he said what he said, but he's a team player. I smoothed it out with him. He'll agree to return kicks if we want him to. That was the way I took it.
Yeah, me too. And I think it kind of sounded like that conversation that they had in the hallway sounded more like Keyshawn was like, I didn't think that was going to, pop off as much as it did. And Matt LaFleur is like, yeah, I mean, everything we say is under a microscope, and, everything we say is going to be, it can be blown out of proportion, or it can be taken at face value. And even if you take that at face value, it's a significant statement for a player to say. So I think that'll probably be, a learning moment for Nixon. But like you said on the podcast, oh, you loved it. Reporters love it because it's the most honest.
I don't mind.
Reaction. It's the most honest statement that you got. And that's, Matt LaFleur has gotten very good at, saying things without totally saying things. And so I think Nixon had maybe went to school on that a little bit after that comment.
Matt LaFleur sometimes says a lot without saying a lot. Yeah, Keyshawn Nixon, 2-time first-team All-Pro kick returner, says he doesn't want to return kicks, thinks it's just going to slide under the bridge.
Right.
Okay. He knows what he's doing.
Probably.
I asked about Edgerrin Cooper, and I thought it was interesting how Matt LaFleur said in there, and I'm not sure how many guys do this, But he said Edgerrin Cooper's staying around here this offseason.
Yeah.
They want to get him bigger. And the way Matt LaFleur said, we think he has superstar potential.
Mm-hmm.
He put some emphasis on that. He put some feeling behind that, it sounded like. And I think he is going to be, I think, an every down player for this team. And as Matt LaFleur said, the more he played, the better he got because of that hip injury in camp, because of learning the ins and outs of the weak side linebacker position. I don't think he's going to play middle linebacker. I think Quay is still going to be there. But I think you're going to see Edgerrin Cooper used a lot more because he's more comfortable with more things being put on his plate. Like we discussed earlier this season and heard from Jeff Hafley and Matt LaFleur. Just because a player is really good in the snaps they're given doesn't always mean you should give them way more snaps. They're good in a certain amount of snaps.
Sure.
I saw people saying, put Edgerrin Cooper at middle linebacker or give him every snap. Well, sometimes he's not ready to, and you don't want to overload a rookie. I think he's ready for that right now. And he already received the second team All-Pro vote at linebacker as a rookie. I don't know who voted him that, but maybe that person has an eye toward the future. And I don't think that will be the last All-Pro vote that Edgerrin Cooper will receive in his career.
He's also going to be...
Yeah, I'm going to take my horse to the old town road. I'm going to...
Riding horses around. He might just be riding horses down South Oneida Street this summer.
It'd be amazing.
Can you imagine if you're waiting at a red light, just see the Packers? I was going to say best defensive player. One of their best defensive players just waiting at a red light with Frosty the horse.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that how that picture would go viral for whoever got it.
Oh, it would be incredible.
It would be.
I might just wait outside Lambeau Field all summer. I thought you were going to play Old Town Road into the break.
Well, yeah, we sure are.
We got a little bit left here on this Wednesday edition. I want to ask Hunter Baumgart what he took away from that Matt LaFleur interview. Anything he thinks stood out as we head into the offseason. The third to last Matt Schneidman show of the season, and Hunter's second to last, because I was informed you'll be calling a high school basketball game on Friday.
Yes, I will be. We've got Menominee Falls at Brookfield East on our sister station, Fox Sports 920 AM.
Look at Hunter. Just taking off on the last day of work. Like,
I know.
A high school kid calling in sick on the last day before summer break.
You'll be in the capable hands of the Doug Russell.
The Doug Russell. All right, let's get to one more break. It's the Matt Schneidman Show right here on The Game.
Hat down, cross town, living like a rock star. Spend a lot of money on my brand new guitar. Baby's got a habit, diamond rings, and Fendi sports bras. Riding down Rodeo in my Maserati sports car.
From the Lynch Buick GMC of West Bend Total Traffic Center, southbound 4145 at Burleigh, crash off to the right shoulder, delays back to Capitol. 94 eastbound, you have delays starting at 84th and clearing up east of 35th. If you see any issues, call the Total Traffic Tip Line at 414-944-5111. I'm Kevin Henry.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Lowe's knows it's easier to make the right calls when you have the right team. Download the Lowe's app to get their home improvement playbook in your hands so you can get their team's expertise anytime.
Flawless Flooring installs luxury vinyl plank, hardwood, modern laminate, or carpeting. And Flawless Flooring has artisan craftsmen who refinish existing wood floors. Our employee-only team restores stained, worn, dented, gouged, even burned hardwood floors to better than brand new. Better than because today's finishes are far more wear-resistant. Flawless's craftsmen replace severely damaged flooring, keeping what can be restored and even expanding existing hardwood floors meticulously and seamlessly, blending old and new. Sensory Underload, FlawlessFlooringLLC.com.
88 unread emails? Okay. New credit card? Delete. Congratulations, you've just won. Goodbye. COVID-19 news and delete. Wait, learn about treatment options for COVID-19. Know and go. Okay, kind of catchy. Know that oral prescription treatment options are available for COVID-19 if you're at high risk. And go see your doctor if you experience symptoms or test positive. And forwarding that to mom.
Talk to your pharmacist or doctor if you or a loved one gets COVID-19. Know and go. Sponsored by Pfizer.
BetOnline is the ultimate destination for all your sports wagering needs in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-timer, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Always the largest selection of odds from football, pro and college basketball, hockey, to cage fighting. BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. BetOnline has you covered on every play, every score, and every win. Visit the website today to get in on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
I'm Clean Living Environments, Kelly Lammert. Heating and cooling companies doing side job duct cleanings want more of your money for cleaning ducts less. At Clean Living Environments, we get more out of your ducts and charge less. I personally guarantee it. Our AeroSeal duct sealing pays for itself via lower energy costs ongoing forever while increasing the comfort and health of your home. With natural gas prices on the rise, duct sealing is a good investment. Get more out of your ducts, cleanlivingenvironments.com. That's cleanlivingenvironments.com.
No two people learn the exact same way. So how did Babbel become the award-winning language learning app? We thought of you, all of you. Take Sierra. As a visual learner, she uses Babbel's wordplay videos.
Today I'll share a quick lesson on shopping French.
Merci beaucoup. Keith is a be in the room with real people kind of learner. So he loves the live online classes with our language experts.
Okay, class. Vos está pronto.
Estamos prontos.
However you learn, Babbel makes it easy. Try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. BABBEL.com.
I've always gotten tons of UTIs. Cranberry products never worked for me, and I was desperate for a way to be proactive. I'm Jenna Ryan, CEO and founder of Eucora. We've worked with doctors to develop effective urinary tract health products. Just mix a packet of Eucora with water and drink it when you need support, like right after intimacy. Eucora is helping over 100,000 women stay healthy. Ready to join them? Get 30% off at eucora.com/radio. That's UQORA.com/radio.
The Fox 6 weather experts are presented by advertisements.com.
Sunny and slightly warmer today with highs in the 20s, then increasing clouds and a chance for light snow after about 8 p.m. Up to 1 inch will be possible. Lingering flurries Thursday morning, then partly sunny with highs in the upper 30s. I'm Fox 6 meteorologist Stephanie Barrichello.
This report is sponsored by Farm Safe 811.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
Zabe and Butch in the morning.
Hey, join us Thursday. No football game, but plenty of basketball, plus Bill Huber, SI.com, talking pack. We'll see you bright and early at 6.
Zabe and Butch, weekday mornings after 6 on the Game.
Get jazzy on. I'm that flight that
January 10th is known as Quitters Day, the day that over 50% of New Year resolutions get broken. But we are not quitters. Keep it going with an Iron Jock buy one, get one free t-shirt program. Now through January 26th, it's an Iron Jock t-shirt BOGO. Buy a short sleeve, get a free short sleeve. Buy a long sleeve, get a free long sleeve. Details at ironjock.com. That's ironjoc.com.
Not quitters.
Hunter, we have a interesting text on the NicoletLaw.com talking text line, don't we?
Yeah, Mike from Merrill says, I thought it was ironic that when Matt LaFleur was mentioning all the people he leans on in the locker room, that Jair wasn't in the mix. Go figure.
Shall we listen to that clip once again?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Hunter's just getting it loaded up. I thought that was interesting too.
Let's take a listen.
There's a lot of guys. I mean, our quarterback's one of them. I'll go through Josh Jacobs. Definitely. He's been a huge addition. Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. I mean, Quay Walker. There's a lot of guys that Keyshawn, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson. I think there's a ton of guys in that locker room that I can lean on and kind of get a vibe of what's going on.
How many people was that, Matt?
11.
Wow.
I wrote them all down. Matt LaFleur picks out the figures in that locker room he feels he can lean on to get the pulse of the locker room, a.k.a. the leaders in that locker room. Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Christian Watson, Quay Walker, Tucker Kraft, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Rashawn Gary, Keyshawn Nixon. If you ever needed an indication about how Matt LaFleur feels about Jair Alexander, listen to those names and tell me which prominent veteran on the team is missing.
It's easy.
Let's go through the position groups. Quarterback, Jordan Love. Yeah. Running back, Josh Jacobs. Wide receiver, Christian Watson represents the wide receiver group. I think that's fair. Romeo Doubs not as vocal. Had the thing earlier this season where reportedly he was unhappy with his role. Christian Watson makes sense to represent that group. Tight end group, Tucker Kraft. Offensive line, Josh Myers and Elton Jenkins. Defensive line, Kenny Clark. Makes sense, right? Edge rusher, Rashawn Gary. Linebacker, Quay Walker. Eric Wilson's the most veteran guy there, but Quay Walker is the guy who plays the most. Cornerback room, Keyshawn Nixon. Safety, Xavier McKinney. The one guy who's missing is Jair Alexander. Now you might say, well, he's not playing enough. He's around the building. He's not on IR. He's not back in Charlotte. He's around the building.
Yeah.
We always saw him in the locker room. He's still in the locker room. He didn't want to talk to us, but he's always there. Matt LaFleur can still lean on him, but he's not. You know why? Because Matt LaFleur feels a certain type of way about Jair Alexander. That's nothing I'm told on the record directly. That's just me reading between the lines of that. And I thought the same thing when I thought back to, there's no Jair Alexander on that list. And it's not like there are any other notable omissions.
No.
There aren't. Who's another established veteran leader on that team who you said, oh, wait, he should be on there? At safety, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, there are no rookies on that list.
Nope.
There are no Tucker Kraft is the only second-year player on that list. But every other person, there are one or two representatives from each position group. Defensive line, there's one. Corner, there's one. The only position group that has multiple is offensive line with Elton Jenkins and Josh Myers. Quarterback has one. Running back has one. Wide receiver has one. Tight end has one. Corner has one. Edge rusher has one. D tackle has one. Linebacker has one. Safety has one. Offensive line has two. It's pretty black and white to me, folks.
Yeah.
He ain't coming back.
No, it definitely does not seem that way. That is half the starters named, and Jair was not named. So
and the other starters, Sean Ryan, who's in his first full-time year starting. Zach Tom, who's in his third year. Rasheed Walker, who's in his first full-time year starting. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, we just talked about him. Dontavian Wicks, they're second-year guys, and Christian Watson is, if Tucker Kraft is there because they're all young at that position.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason a second-year player is on that list. If Jaden Reed was the senior-most member of the receiver room, he might be on that list. At D tackle, Colby Wooden's not, Carl Brooks not, Van Ness, Inagbari. But at corner, isn't your $21 million a year cornerback supposed to represent that group? Or is it the guy who's making $6 million a year who doubles as a kick returner? Matt LaFleur may not agree with what Keyshawn Nixon said, but he clearly respects him as a leader on that team.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I thought that spoke volumes, now that I think about it more. So I'm glad. What was the name of the person who texted that?
Mike from Merrill.
Mike from Merrill, thank you for bringing that up so we can just drive that point home. Context clues, people. If you need some context clues, and now I know it's not entirely Matt LaFleur's decision whether Jair Alexander comes back next year. He's going to have a say. He's going to be in Brian Gutekunst's ear. And that right there is telling to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely off base. But I don't think I am. All right. We got to go. Tomorrow, no football feast, obviously, since there's no game.
Right.
I might just do the show from a Buffalo Wild Wings anyway. Get free wings. Do you think I could go and get free wings somewhere? Just do the show from there?
Well, you could, sure. I have no jurisdiction over promises of any of that.
That's fair.
Those those are people higher than me that make those decisions. But I suggest that anyone should go to a Buffalo Wild Wings tomorrow and listen to the show on the iHeartRadio app, 97.3 The Game, and listen at Buffalo Wild Wings. And then tell all the people that are there, too, and say, you guys heard this show? It's a great show.
What we will do tomorrow is recap everything notable from Brian Gutekunst's season-ending press conference. The Packers general manager, who just finished his 7th year in that position, will speak with reporters at noon Central Time. I imagine that will be carried right here on the Mike Heller Show to start that show. So tune into the game to listen to that, and then we will break it all down tomorrow night at 6.
And remember, Matt LaFleur Podcast now out on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts if you missed it.
Yes. Good 25 minutes for the last time this season, not the first time, the last time this season with the Packers head coach. For Hunter, I'm Matt. Appreciate everybody for listening.
I see you.